Hello and welcome to my podcast, Up Your Total Glow. I am so excited that you are here today. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Natasha Ramlall. And she is an embodied integration coach who works with high achieving women navigating what she calls identity rupture moments. You know, those times in life when something shifts so profoundly that we no longer recognize ourselves in the mirror of our own lives. Whether through divorce, illness, burnout, loss, or simply the awakening that the life that we've built no longer reflects who we truly are, these moments can feel very disorienting and deeply uncomfortable. Yet Natasha sees them not as breakdowns, but as invitations into a more authentic relationship with ourselves. And what I especially love about Natasha's work is that she helps people move beyond simply understanding their struggle intellectually. What she does is she guides them back into the wisdom of the body. So she helps them to rebuild self-trust, reconnect with their inner knowing, and navigate the space between who they have been and who they are becoming. Natasha, welcome to Up Your Total Glow. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here as well and looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. Okay, so let's dive right in. I'm
Mhm.
wondering, was there a moment for you where you had one of these that you now call identity rupture moments?
I've had a few. The most recent one that I can draw on was in deciding to step away from my career of 25 years into this new work that I'm doing with coaching and facilitation and conscious convening. Um, And I didn't realize all of the ways that that was going to rock my world until I landed in a place where I realized how profoundly I had, anchored parts of my identity in that work, in that environment, in those relationships. And it was a really beautiful moment of awareness. It was a really challenging moment practically.
Hmm.
But it also paralleled what I was seeing in the work that I was doing with other women. And it also, you know, recalled for me all of the work that I had been doing in that 25-year career where I was supporting newcomers and refugees to Canada in their sort of settlement and being that central landing place for them after a pretty massive rupture to their identities by
Hmm.
moving.
Wow.
Um, so everything kind of came into focus with this through line of this transition point and how on the surface it looks like it's just an external thing to manage. But at the heart of it, it's really a much, much deeper internal transformation that's happening.
Hmm.
And so, as you mentioned in your introduction, rather than just trying to get through it and pushing through and relying on the same kinds of survival mechanisms that we've used in our lives in other cases, it's a really beautiful opportunity to take time and space for a deeper level of self-understanding.
Absolutely. Wow, I love it. It's so interesting, isn't it? How you pretty much worked in something where it was mirroring what you are now doing more from the outside, and now you're really working with this internally. I find this so fascinating. I love it. And
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. I also think that everything is always an opportunity to become closer to our true version of who we are, to reconnect. Um, and I really feel this is our journey in our life, and it will continue and continue and continue. And
Mhm.
it can be really beautiful, or it is really beautiful. And at the same time, yes, it is so challenging at times.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so how do we know that the difference between losing ourselves and discovering ourselves? So I find this is a very, it can go with each other, and it can be very easy to, yeah, lose yourself in that. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think that I'm right there with you. It's a very confusing, nuanced place of investigation because this process of moving through an identity rupture, it sort of has three distinct phases, and then it has sub phases within the phases.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the initial ending of something that has broken or collapsed or is no longer working. And then it's got this messy middle place, and this is where I, do most of my support for the women that I work with. And then the potential for this new beginning that can be birthed from going through that process. But as you say, when we are thinking about that new beginning, so that sort of third phase that we're moving into, we will often center that exploration around what do we want? What do we desire? What's the
Mm-hmm.
preferred vision? Where do we want to move? And what's important about understanding an identity rupture is that part of the process is looking at the ending and being okay with losing,
Mm-hmm.
being okay with letting go, being okay with um, releasing parts of yourself that have felt central to your identity and familiar and comfortable, and really allowing yourself to get to a place where you're willing to let go and lose something in
Mm-hmm.
order to make space for this new vision. And I think that is really a very, very painful place. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's sort of the intersection where, you know, am I losing? Am I gaining? What's happening here? Like what is going on with my life? I'm losing a sense of how I understand myself and how I have understood myself up until this point. And I don't have a clear idea of who I'm moving toward.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this messy sort of no man's land in the middle, I my only choice is to drop into the present
Mm-hmm.
discomfort.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think we can all relate to how uncomfortable this feels and how unprotected we feel in that space, because truth is that our identities are protection, you know, in
Absolutely.
one form or the other, no matter how uncomfortable they are or how much we've outgrown them. This is what we know and what feels comfort comfortable, even if it's uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
yes, it's, I think it's one of the hardest things to truly be willing to let go, and probably also not to let yourself get entangled into the new you, because wow, okay, there's a new identity, let's jump onto that, my savior. So how
Right.
do you navigate that?
It's so interesting what you're saying because you're right. We will often rush into that next version, that next iteration of our life to get out of the discomfort. And in doing that, we're not really taking the time to be in the deep exploration of what's happening, internally with this rupture. But what's really interesting about what you said along the lines of our identity being protective and, being really deeply connected to our protective mechanisms. And that was actually something I wanted to ask you about because I know that your work is deeply rooted in the Ayurvedic tradition.
Mm.
And I know that there's a lot around organizing around patterns and adaptations and things like that. And, with identity, we are often identifying
Mhm.
with those survival mechanisms that we picked up in order to protect ourselves, to survive particular contexts.
Mhm.
But because they're so familiar, because we've been carrying them for such a long time, they can get enmeshed in our identity and we lose we lose that distinction between this is this was a survival pattern, this was a protective mechanism, this is not who I am.
Mhm.
And so it's, separating ourselves from the identity of our patterns can also feel equally scary and equally triggering because we are releasing something that feels so familiar, even though, as you said, it's not serving us anymore. It may have got us to where we are, it may have had a positive intention at some point, but we recognize we don't want this anymore.
Mhm.
But yet the process of actually separating from those survival patterns and the behaviors and um, the actions and the orientation of how we show up to our life. That's it's a big deal. It's a massive
Mhm.
process.
Absolutely. I can so relate to that. And also, I feel there's something else because obviously, as you said, it goes so deep, and depending at what age or era in our lives I guess we will always disentangle. But depending on, the age of when we are entangling this bit, um, it has become so ingrained into our subconscious that it's something else is running the show. So let's just talk, for example, about um, that your subconscious might believe that you can't make mistakes. You've learned this as a child to protect yourself. It wasn't safe to make mistakes. And you might not be even consciously aware of the fact that this is running the show underneath, and your whole body, your whole nervous system is reacting to or is protecting you not to make any mistakes. So, this is another form of identity you might not even be aware of. Can you
Yeah,
relate to that? So I feel there is
absolutely.
so much untangling. Yes, there is this conscious, okay, letting go of this, and then, ooh, I wasn't even aware of what this means, and it's so uncomfortable. And okay, Natasha says, I have to sit with this, so I'm trusting her, and I'm sitting in this, and then there might be even more stuff coming up I'm not even aware of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such an important part. I'll often say, that our work is 80% awareness.
Hmm.
And then 20%, what are we going to do with the awareness?
Hmm.
But in terms of effort, it's sort of reversed because it's about 20% effort to gain
Yeah,
80% awareness.
yeah.
And then it's 80% effort to actually what you're going to do with that 20%. Um, but yeah, absolutely. As long as um, something exists outside of our conscious awareness, it's exactly as you said, it's driving our actions
Hmm.
without us understanding. And so it has the power.
Hmm.
Once it comes into our awareness, we gain agency
Hmm.
because we understand that the pattern is there. So it is a deep untangling. I think it does involve sort of the cognitive stories,
Hmm.
understanding the meaning making that we've been relying on, both to understand our identity and to understand. how to be in our life, how to do life, um, how to define our own sense of worthiness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also, it involves the body
Mm-hmm.
because many of the survival patterns and the mechanisms that are at play are directly related to various places of repressed or stuck energy that we've been holding in our body.
Mm-hmm.
And from such a young age, we learn which expressions of emotion are safe and dangerous to feel. And and so again, yeah, because we've been running these habits for such a long time, they're deeply enmeshed with our identity.
Mm-hmm.
And so and so at the point of an identity rupture, I feel back to what we were saying in the beginning, it's really an invitation to slow down
Mm-hmm.
and
Love
take the
that.
time. Yeah, because a lot of the time this is one of the reasons I think that a lot of women come into these identity ruptures at midlife, because for the beginning, in the first few decades of our life, we are in survival mode. We don't
Yeah.
have the capacity to do anything other than push through and be productive and get it done. And particularly, I work with really high functioning, hyper capable, self-aware women. And so that's our profile, right? We know how to be reliable, be efficient, solve problems, and meet the needs of everybody that we're looking after. And so at midlife, we get, maybe we've been having these nudges and we've found the band-aids and we've found ways to push through, but it reaches a point where that's no longer sustainable and these ruptures occur. And that's where we either have the choice to continue pushing and moving past it, in which case we'll likely set ourselves up for a repeated pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can actually recognize that this is a moment, it's an invitation, it's an opportunity to learn how to come back into the full experience of being human. And so that when we're in that survival mode for those many decades, we're up in our cognitive mind. We're living from the head. We're understanding our life conceptually through the stories that we're telling,
Yeah.
because it's the only way. It's the only way to actually be in this hyper productive, fast paced life that has been determined for us. If we want to keep up, if we want to get our stuff done and survive, we have to be up in the head um, so that we can survive it. What's required is to come back into the body, and in order to do that, we have to be willing to slow down.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Absolutely. And I feel we also have to be willing to unlearn because what you just described, and I work with the same people, who are such high achievers, who are amazing, who are very self-aware, yet they've truly lost the connection with their bodies because they had to. Because the body will say, no, I need sleep. Slow down, please. And please, let's eat in peace and get yourself away. Take half an hour. And do high achievers do that? No.
right.
High achievers push on and do exactly what society tells us all the time to do. Go faster, go harder. So what you are doing and saying, and I'm very much in the same realm of that, is actually the opposite. It's like, no, hang in there, slow down and do the opposite of what we see everywhere and of what our modern life is actually doing. So it's very hard. And there was something else that you mentioned, which I thought was so profound. Yes, at some point, this is not sustainable anymore. So something breaks down. Most of the time, we just have some form of illness or, yeah, rupture. as you said it. But I also feel this is the time where the outside again for many women shifts, because it's the time where the children may leave the house, or at least they are no longer so depending on you, and also your body changes in midlife. And with that, there comes a whole new invitation for us to actually go inward and go deeper.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
Have to let
And
my cat in. Sorry, just one
yeah,
second.
no,
She's
that's
meowing.
okay.
Come, go. You have to come. Come on in. She's used to getting cuddles when she comes in, but no cuddles right now. Okay, sorry. Thank you,
Okay.
Natasha.
That's okay, no problem. Yeah, so mm, I lost the plot.
Fair enough.
We
I
were, yeah,
absolutely,
okay.
that was also. Okay, so
Um,
I just think that there are several layers on top of each other. One thing, yes, it's not sustainable if you continuously suppress the body's signals, what the body is
mm,
actually asking of you, because, well, the body is speaking to you because it is not sustainable. The body has needs. The body needs rest. The body needs replenishment, restoration, and actually going with the rhythm of life, which is, as a high achiever, we are trying to ignore that and go like, no, I don't need that. My body can do it. We are different, which, of course, I mean, we're not doing that. Thinking it exactly in that way, but that's our behavior. Yeah. So of course
yeah.
it doesn't work. So either there's the breakdown and there's this huge, maybe health scream, or rupture in another way. And what
Mhm.
I was saying is that I also see that there's this more quiet shift for many women at this age, where we actually really have this invitation because maybe we have more space and things shift in the outside to go inside. And that's obviously very Ayurvedically in Ayurveda. And I love that. Midlife is really the time for us women where we can go inward, and yeah, we are invited to become more wise and even more connected with us. And I love that,
Mm,
because in the Western world it's all about, okay, we don't need you anymore, you're done,
right.
thank you.
Right. If you're not producing in the same way
Yeah,
that you have been.
yeah.
I love what you're saying, because what I'm hearing is this, or what it's reminding me of is this sort of this great orchestration that's happening, that is, the timing,
Hmm.
that sort of age where our children are moving into independence and don't need us in the same way.
Hmm.
Um, and also, by the very nature of an identity rupture, and you spoke about health, another big one is the ending of a significant relationship,
Hmm.
romantic partnership. Another one is a job, a career
Hmm.
collapsing. And in all of these cases, when you are a high functioning, highly productive, hyper capable woman, and you've been sacrificing your own um, needs in a way, in terms of, not listening to your body, not following your cues in order to keep up that productivity. And then it breaks and it shatters. And despite having put so much of yourself into that external
Hmm.
um, place of gaining validation, gaining worth, gaining a reference point. Um, so that piece of the divine orchestration is like this. It's like the universe is shaking you by the shoulders and saying,
Yeah,
see,
yeah,
if you continue to externally validate your life and your identity, what do you have at the end of the day?
yeah,
You can't control, you can't rely on, you
yeah,
can't expect particular outcomes when you're relying on the external world to meet those needs. So
Absolutely.
go inward, dear woman, and
Mm.
find something that's internally referenced, that's true, that's real, that's honest. And the only way, again, to do that is to go into the body. And the only way to go into the body is to get present. And the only way to get present is to slow down,
Yeah.
which is completely counterculture to the way that we were acting before the rupture. So it's working together in this beautiful symphony. In the moment, it doesn't always feel beautiful, but taking a step back and looking at the whole picture, um, I think you're right. I think it is part of our journey as women. And either we come to that place um, because of something terrible happening, which
Mm.
is not fun, but it
Mhm.
it does bring us that same invitation, or we can't ignore those internal nudges. It becomes intolerable to just keep going.
Sorry, Natasha. That was my cat. Indy. Indy. Okay. Okay. Good. Come here. Okay, we've got lots of animal forces here today. That's juicy. Come, come here. Yeah, no, that was just so beautiful what you said, Natasha. I couldn't agree more with you, 100%. And all the time while you were speaking, the word that you use came to mind, the invitation, the invitation of existence to really, yeah, come more home to yourself. And no, it's not always fun, actually. It's sometimes just the hardest thing that you do. And at the same time, there is always something beautiful coming from there. So, okay, I've got two questions. Do you have actual tools for someone who has been just running and doing, and the nervous system is still in fight and flight most of the time? Because it is my experience that if you then say, yeah, okay, go slow down, sit with this, go in meditation, it's just the hardest thing to do. So for me, for example, I was trying, and I was already a yoga teacher back then, so I understood it all intellectually. But really sitting down in meditation was the hardest thing for me to do because I was still in fight and flight and in all of my trauma and in doing, and I just, it felt excruciating. So do you have tools that you can share with us that really are allowing this process to be a little bit gentler than just, okay, slow down, go into meditation,
Yeah.
which can be too hard.
Another thing to do on the list,
Exactly, another
right?
thing to do.
Yeah. I think what you're naming is important because when we're in a state of like hyper dysregulated nervous system and fight flight, I think that's where support can be incredibly useful
Yeah,
because having somebody to hold space with you, having somebody to give you permission to slow down and actually create a container that is designed specifically for you to be able to slow down,
yeah,
can be incredibly valuable. And to be witnessed in that and accepted in that is a really important piece. Um, I do, I have a couple of foundational tools that I'll use. One is definitely breathing, coming
yeah,
back to relearning how to breathe more deeply and um, even recognizing that the way that we've been breathing that we think is our normal breathing pattern, our default way of breathing is actually very short.
yeah,
And for most people, we are not taking those deep, nourishing
yeah,
breaths that we should be. So that's definitely an important tool is to coming back to the breath. But another really foundational piece is this practice of resourcing the body. And that's really about learning how to land in your body and connect to, glimmers of sensation, neutrality, calm, or if you can, support and safety in your body and allowing that to sort of expand and um, giving you an anchor
Hmm.
of the felt sense of your own body, which for some women is easy to do. For some women, it's really, really difficult to do. So it can be very nuanced. I actually have a tool that I would love to share with your listeners. It's a free guided audio where I guide the listener into a resourcing practice. So for people who are unfamiliar with it, for women who have been living above the eyebrows and they have no idea what we're talking about when we say get into the body and feel your feelings, and that feels
Mm.
really foreign, this can be a really great stepping stone to gently come back into recognition and relationship with what it feels like to inhabit your body,
Yeah.
um, from presence and with acceptance. And it's a very beautiful practice. So um, that would be probably my number one tools that I would invite women to explore.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I love both tools, of course, but I believe most of us have heard about the breath. So I
Mhm.
really, really love that you shared the other tool, and I think it's just so powerful. What does coming home in the body, coming home to you, mean to you, Natasha?
Mm. It really means inhabiting my life,
Yeah,
right? Coming home to the full human experience
yeah,
of me.
yeah,
And it's it's alarming how far I strayed from that.
yeah,
And this work that has claimed my life and will be the hill I die on is this beautiful reclamation
yeah,
of my own human experience and my birthright that I get to inhabit it fully.
yeah.
So for me, that's what I would say, inhabiting my life fully.
Beautiful. I love it. So probably my next question, you've probably already answered, but maybe there's something else you can add to it. What brings you the most joy at the moment?
Hmm. I think right now I'm in a very deliberate investigation of pleasure and
Beautiful.
really, again, slowing down
Hmm.
enough to really feel into those little small moments of pleasure that I have habitually trained myself to rush past.
Yeah,
Savoring the taste of my food, even savoring the feel of water going down my throat when I'm really thirsty,
yeah,
or, taking a shower and feeling the water on my body, feeling the sun on my skin. Um, a very passing aroma of flowers outside. It's that time of year where you'll just get these little bursts of this intoxicating smell. Um, and just, those moments where you you feel vibrant
yeah,
just existing in that moment. It's nothing big usually. It's usually something very normal, very everyday. But as I said, I've spent my whole life rushing past those things. And we all know the story of people who come to the end of their life. And the very first thing they want to do is go back and savor all of those small moments that they took for granted. And so I am, summer's a great time for me to set this intention. I am intentionally seeking to savor and really be present with as much of those pleasurable moments as I possibly can, like really using all my five senses. And um, even in those moments of quiet and stillness and rest, just really feeling into the pleasure of neutrality, Like
Yeah.
there's a pleasantness of there just being an absence of activation in
Yeah.
the body, and just sort of really appreciating that, like how lovely it feels to just be in my body and not be experiencing any tightness, any aches and pains, any discomfort, um, and savoring that, you know?
Beautiful. So what I heard was a description of what it truly can mean to feel alive versus just surviving. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is what most of us do when we just doing and doing and doing and continuing to do. So we
absolutely.
don't have the time to actually savor. And when we savor, we do, yeah, become alive in all of our senses. And this is truly what I heard you describing, which I think is, yeah, what life is meant to be about. And I think
Yeah.
it's almost tragic that society guides us in the other direction. Yeah. At the same time, obviously, there's also the gift because it creates more room for actually waking up. So it depends
Yeah.
on how you want to view it. I would love to hear. Okay, sorry, let me let this cat out. Morgan, you are a tiny girl. So back. I don't have any other animals, just those two.
They keep you busy enough.
Oh, okay. So what was I going to ask you? Yeah, about self-trust, because I
Mm,
feel that this is a really important part. I would love to hear you speak to. It's also something that obviously we lose if we all the time negate our what our body needs.
yeah.
Is there something else that you would like to add to, yeah, the whole point about self-trust and how we can find that and how important this is in this whole journey?
I'm glad you brought it up, because actually that is the piece that I come back to again and again and again.
Hmm.
You know, when we're going through, we've sort of talked about the benefits of this rupture and coming through it and moving into something newer and more evolved. But when you're actually in that messy place of the rupture, it's very painful and challenging and difficult to withstand. And in those moments of real human challenge, I think the question is like, what is the purpose of this? What is the lesson in this?
Hmm.
And I have come to land on that the lesson of that messy, uncertain, disoriented, lost place in the middle of an identity rupture is to learn how to trust. Because
Yeah.
I think that it is the hardest thing for us to do as humans, is to trust, self-trust, soul trust, trust in the journey. Um, and you're right, when we experience a rupture, we it disintegrates trust, because oftentimes we've placed a level of trust in this thing in our life, this relationship, this job, the health of our bodies is going to, we can rely on it. We're not assuming that anything is going to go awry with
Hmm.
this thing. And so when it collapses, we really have to reckon with, well, how did I not understand that this was going to happen? Like, and we just have this habit of, as humans, to always turn it on ourselves and blame ourselves for anything that goes wrong. Um, and in some cases, in a lot of cases, our deterioration of self-trust begins far earlier. When we are young children, we already start to stop trusting our own inner voice. Oftentimes because our caregivers don't have the capacity to hold space for different kinds of conflicts and different kinds of experiences that we go through. So as we're coming up as children, we may have, an experience of something's not right here. And because of the way that our society is conditioned, the way we are culturally, our parents may never name that thing, but they rather just kind of sweep it under the rug,
Yeah.
and keep the peace. Like, we don't need to talk about this. We don't need to make a big deal about it. Let's just forget that it happened and move on. But for a young child, they're left feeling like, oh, so this weird knowing inside that something's off, something's gone wrong, something's been broken. It's not being validated by my caregivers, who are the ones that I'm supposed to look to understand how things work. And, because my survival depends on them, obviously they're not wrong. So the problem must be with me. And from a very young age, we start to let that self-knowing, that self-trust, that listening to our inner wisdom, that starts to break apart. And then from a lifetime of habitually, you know trusting others over trusting ourselves, um, it can be a big mission, it can be a big job to sort of relearn how to trust our self-trust, as you asked about specifically, but then also trust in the greater experience, that
Yeah.
there's a purpose to it, that there is something greater than us that's holding us through it. There's meaning. um, yeah, so I think trust is just an enormous piece, and I think that it's a very slow, slow, deep work
Mm.
to come back to that. And I think that it's, as you mentioned at the beginning, it's kind of a lifelong one. It's not
Yeah.
something that we get one and done, but it's something that we have to continually return to. And it's almost like, the universe is giving us a nudge and saying, yeah, but do you really?
Yeah. Yeah.
You trust, but do you really? And
Yeah.
it just kind of gets more and more difficult to
Yeah.
surrender to not knowing.
I love, love, love how you express this, and I couldn't agree more with you. I feel that it's who we inherently are. We are love, we are light, we are that trust. And as you said, then from an early age onwards, we are told, no, you can't trust yourself. Look towards the outside, outsource your trust. This is how it works. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And we are told, no, outside is your safety, not inside of you. Outsource again. And yeah, then the journey is to unlearn all of this and come back to trusting. So it's a bit crazy, and again, it's beautiful and it's hard and it's all the things at the same time.
Yeah, it's all the things
Um,
at the same time.
I'm very conscious of your time. I do have two more questions though. So number one, would you say that any kind of symptoms, may it be anxiety or an identity rupture, whatever, that they are actually a form of grief from your body, grieving the fact that the life the way they know it is no longer the same. Does that make sense the way I asked it?
Yeah, it does. It does. I've never phrased it that way, but I'm hearing that that's actually such a beautiful way of speaking to that piece of needing to let go,
Hmm.
right? Because in that those three phases of the identity rupture process, that letting go, it feels like a deep grief, right?
Hmm.
We're letting go of the relationship, we're letting go of the job, we're letting go of the survival patterns, we're letting go of the relationship with the body, with our body that we thought we could depend on. Um, so many different iterations of what can happen there. Um, and yeah, it is the process of grief, because you are losing something that even when it didn't necessarily serve you, you loved it from a place of familiarity
Hmm.
and comfort.
Hmm.
And my understanding of grief is that it's the other side of love, right? It exists because we were so attached to something that we've lost.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think grief is a really accurate way of describing that process of needing to let go of the old, release it, and in some ways lose a part of yourself in order to make space for new parts of yourself to emerge.
Yeah. Oh, love, love, love it. I feel I could talk with you forever. I would love to talk with you forever, but it's,
Another day.
yeah, another day. And it's also late at your end. Thank you so much for making that time for me. So, if you had three pieces of wisdom for someone who really needs to hear it, or even the younger generation, and just really briefly, you've given us so much wisdom, but maybe in just a few words or three words, what would they be?
Mm, three words. I
It can
would
be more. It doesn't
say,
have to be only words. It's up to you.
mhm. Um, I think the three words I would choose if I were going to, you know, reduce it down to words, because I think that's powerful. Um, self-compassion,
Hmm. Yeah.
um, radical acceptance,
Hmm.
and unconditional love.
Mm. Yeah. Hallelujah.
Those those are the three. Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Love it.
And for me, unconditional love means acceptance without judgment.
Yeah.
So the three of them kind of intertwine as well.
Yeah. And I feel this is exactly what your work is about, and so is mine. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so where can we find you?
Easiest way is to just jump on my website, which is humanistcoaching.ca, and
Hmm.
everything about me that you'd want to know is there.
Beautiful. And of course, I will link everything in the show notes. Is there something that I haven't asked you that you wish I had?
No, it's really been a beautiful conversation, and I just want to say thank you. I think we're so privileged to live at a
Mm.
time in humanity where we can jump on this little computer and be able to speak to each other from different sides of the world and have this incredible conversation. And that's such a gift. And so thank you. I'm really grateful for this connection.
I agree, and thank you so much for you. And if there is something that Natasha shared resonated with you today, I highly encourage you to explore her work further. Natasha has very generously, as you heard, gifted to you, my awesome listeners, her beautiful guided audio for nervous system regulation. And you'll find the link to that along with her website and ways to connect with her in the show notes. And if today's conversation sparked something within you about your own health, vitality, or healing journey that I can help you with, you'll also find, of course, my information in the show notes. So, if you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like and subscribe and share with someone who can truly benefit from this conversation. Because, fact is, we are not here to survive, we are here to fully thrive. Most importantly, never ever forget you are love, you are light, and you are already whole. No fixing needed. You are whole. Much love. Keep glowing.